After a few seconds of shocking news, in which even Madhu was surprised and stood quiet, the professor clapped for both of them. Following the professor, all of the classmates clapped for them, except for Joe and his gang of friends. She walked inside the class holding the hand of Madhu, and Madhu followed her innocently, feeling proud of her love. While sitting, Bree stared angrily at Joe, who looked on the other side, feeling insulted. After the class, Bree held the hand of Madhu and walked towards her car. She dropped her till her door. While leaving, she caressed her face and kissed her forehead, comforting her. Never get upset or embarrassed for things that happened today. I love you and I am there for you, always, she said. Madhu nodded and held her hand and said, Bree, I am not embarrassed on our love. It was just all that drawing and laughing of students and their looks. I felt... Madhu tried to explain and Bree held her face from the other hand and said, Shh. No need to explain anything. I know. Just give me one more day. I will sort this once and for all, she softly said, consoling her. What are you going to do now? Madhu asked, worrying about what else she is going to do. I need to acknowledge the people who spread our wedding news in college. Previously, Joe's time, I ignored them. But this time, they are gonna pay for this, she said and walked out, without waiting for a second at Madhu's home. Madhu got worried after hearing that. She ran and held her hand near the lift and asked, Bree, promise me, you don't get hurt and be safe. Bree smiled and held her face in her palms. Yes, baby, saying, she kissed her forehead. You stay at home. I will call you back in the night, saying she left. Madhu was worried for Bree. She walked here and there inside her house. With Bree's reaction while going, she knew that Bree's stepbrother and stepsister might be the reason for all that happened in the college. But she didn't say anything to Bree. And she also knew Bree was short-tempered. She thought, what if she hurt herself or them in anger? She thought of calling her, but she didn't wish to nag her privacy as they both respected each other's family life and privacy. She was also worried thinking about the circumstances that happened on that day. She never wished to see such situations. Although she loved Bree more than anything, but facing the world on her love was a major concern for her. She was anxious that her class and almost half of the college came to know about her marriage that day. What if somebody from college calls her family? What if her family comes to know about her marriage? How will they react? Charan was a loving brother and best friend of her life, who always stood by her side. How he will react if he comes to know about her marriage? All the thoughts made her restless. She thought of calling Charan, but that wasn't the right time. She had spoken to him and everyone in the family that morning before leaving for college. And she thought if she called again, then they might get worried about her. She had already planned to come out to Charan first thing after going back to India. However, there were hardly 15 days left for her to leave for India. She prayed to God that no such bad things should happen, which she was thinking at that time. On the other side, Bree called her mother in the car and asked her to come home. By the time her mother came, she also reached her home. She told everything to Nancy that happened in the college. Nancy was against her gay marriage. After hearing her problem, "So what do you expect me to do in that? It was your decision to get married. Now face it," she said in a cold-hearted way. "Wow, I always thought you just gave me birth as an accident. Now you proved it right," Bree said in a satire. Nancy stood quiet in anger. "Mom, you never cared when I was addicted to alcohol. You never cared when your new stepchildren played plots on me. And today as well, you are doing the same. You never loved me. It was Madhu who loved me unconditionally," Bree said. "Yeah, and I believe it was her who has washed your mind to be gay and get married without even talking to me. You were straight. You had boyfriends. Wake up," Nancy uttered. Great. I am not surprised. All you care about my sexual preference now? You never cared when I had sex with my boyfriends. You never cared to ask me how I feel and what I like. You are asking me about marriage. Did you tell me before you got married to your new husband and dump these freaks on me, who are creating troubles in my privacy ever since they came into my life? Bree uttered. Shut up! You have no right to talk about them, Nancy uttered. Yeah? In that case, all these fucking freaks also have no right to interfere in my life. And you don't have any right to talk about Madhu, Bree uttered in anger. Bree! How dare you talk to me like that? Nancy uttered. Yes, I dare because you made me to. And you are right. Madhu washed my mind. Because of her, I started understanding you and began the stopped conversations with you. And you know it very well. You know Madhu. You liked her all the time. I realized I am gay only after meeting her. And you know from the heart, she is a nice girl. So stop blaming her. And think, being a mother, have you ever tried to ask me what I liked or how I feel about life and things? How I felt when I never liked any boys but had sex with them and got addicted to alcohol because I was angry on you for not caring for me? Have you ever thought how I feel when these assholes create problems in my life? Don't blame innocent Madhu for your faults. Trust me, now I'm not asking you to stop these jerks to interfere in my life. I'm gonna do it all myself. Now you and your loving new family will be sorry to mess with me and my wife. Saying she left from home, Nancy stood still with no answer to her questions and challenges. From home, Bree went to meet her legal advisor and discussed many things for more than an hour. Although the advisors do not meet without an appointment, but Bree was a well-known rich client, so he couldn't say no to meet her. Bree made a will stating that her wife Madhu will be having equal rights in all her shares, bonds and property. She also made a point that if anything happens to her or her wife Madhu, 51% shares of her company will be given to the charity to various organizations. Her advisor told her that the documents will be legalized in the courts next working day. She didn't stop there. She wanted to teach a lesson to her step-siblings for hurting Madhu. She went to the police and narrated everything to the cops and launched a complaint against her stepbrother Dom and stepsister Elizabeth that they were harming her respect in the college. She told the police that even Joe, her classmate, had joined them in that silly plan of theirs. So the police can give a warning to Joe as well, and in the future, he should not harm the respect of Madhu in the college. And she had also made a point that if anything happens to her or Madhu, then they will be held responsible. Within an hour, police had sent a warning to Joe at his home, after which his parents took his class and warned him that they will stop funding his education if he messes up in the college again. Joe learned his lesson. Police also warned Elizabeth and Dom by going to their office. Dom and Lizzie had gone furious after receiving the warning from police. Glenn got angry after that and all three reached Nancy, complaining about Bree's such act. Madhu saw Bree on the video doorbell. When Bree came home, Madhu hugged her, crying in happiness, seeing her safe. Everything is solved now, honey, saying Bree kissed her forehead. With the sip of coffee, Bree told her the entire story. What? Why did you add my name in your properties? Madhu objected to her will. Baby, you are my wife now. You have the right on everything that belongs to me. Showing her ring, Bree mocked and pulled her in her arms by holding her waist. Yes, but I didn't marry you for all these materialistic things. I love you, and all I want is only you, Madhu said, holding her face in her hands. I know, saying Bree kissed her. They both cherished the beautiful moments of togetherness that night after a terrible, hectic, long day. The next morning, Bree went to college along with Madhu from her home. Later, Bree's advisor had called her and Madhu for the legal documentation. Madhu wasn't feeling right to take a share in Bree's property, but Bree insisted not to overthink that. Till that time, her decision was not told to any of her family members. Bree asked Madhu to live along with her at her home, but Madhu wasn't comfortable to go to her home. Bree thought of moving in with Madhu, but on the contrary, she also thought she should stay at her home to possess her rights over there, and by that, she can keep a check on the movements of her step-family. She was also worried about Madhu's safety, so she hired a guard by calling in a security agency, without telling Madhu, as she didn't wish to create panic in her mind. Bree made sure the guard stood by the outside of Madhu's apartment from the same night and she left for her home. At Bree's home, everything seemed normal. Nobody spoke to her and she didn't bother to speak to them. She knew it was a silence before the thunder and she was all set to answer that. Days passed and soon Bree's family got the news of her will and changes that she made in her properties. Everyone, including Nancy and Betty, was shocked after that. Nancy uttered at Bree for her drastic step and everyone created a big drama at her home. Bree heard all silently by sipping a juice on a dining table with a smile on her face. And when everyone finished, she got up from her seat and went to Charlie and asked him to drive her to Madhu's place. Glenn, Dom and Lizzie were dreadfully angry for losing Bree's share. All they had planned was to create a problem between Nancy and Bree and take advantage of their fights and possess their properties. Their plan was going well when Bree was addicted to alcohol and Nancy didn't care for her. But ever since Madhu came into Bree's life, everything had changed. They thought they were late to act on Madhu as well, since Bree had launched a safety complaint on them if anything happened to her or Madhu. All three of them left the house to discuss their next and final action. On the other side, Bree was carefree. She came to Madhu smiling and told her about everything that happened in her home. Madhu was upset even after hearing all that. She was upset from the past week. The reason? She was leaving for India in 2 days. All that week she did shopping along with Bree for her relatives and cherished the company of Bree day and night. After 6 months, Madhu was going back to India to meet her beloved family, to enjoy the grand wedding of her brother, for which she had planned hundreds of things from clothes to ceremonies a year ago when he got engaged. But when the time came for that, she was not happy at all. She held hands of Bree, hugged her and kissed her numerous times in that week. She couldn't think of the separation from her. She cried in the nights in her arms. Bree spent every night with her that week. On the other side, Bree was boosting her strength and asked her to stay happy as she was meeting her family after a long time. Madhu used to get angry at her for not showing any sadness for their separation, which was nearing. Bree used to smile and kiss her, make it out well with her cute face. Bree enjoyed her anger and every time she got angry, she used to pull her and kiss her. She enjoyed the cute love that shy Madhu poured on her in those days. And all this happiness of Bree had another reason. She had planned to visit and surprise Madhu in India. She had already booked her ticket to India. But something wasn't fine at Bree's home. The Johnsons had made their plan to take revenge on Bree. Even though Bree had booked the tickets to India, still she was upset about staying a week away from her love. She didn't show her feelings to Madhu as she was already full of sorrow. Bree was away from home for a week. Nancy and all the Johnsons were hiding their anger on her. The day when Madhu was busy packing and Bree was with her hugging and kissing her while she was busy packing. Unexpectedly, Nancy came to Madhu's home. Madhu was shivering ever since Nancy entered her home. She went to the kitchen and made a coffee for her. Nancy took a sip of coffee without starting any conversations till then. Bree had no feelings and no worries when Nancy sat before her. All she was worried about was that she should not blame or hurt sensitive Madhu with her words. After offering coffee to Nancy, Madhu stood near the dining table, away from Bree out of respect to her mother-in-law. Bree observed her fear. Pretending to drink the water, Bree went near the dining table and took a glass of water and stood beside Madhu, keeping her hand on Madhu's hand, which was trembling on the dining table. Nancy observed that and began her conversation. "So, you are going back to India?" she asked after taking a sip of coffee. Yes, Madhu said, shaking. Bree pressed her hand to assure her not to worry. "So, you will be back or going forever?" Nancy taunted. "She has a course to complete here and she's married to me. She'll be back for sure," Bree said instantly. "Yes, but what if her family comes to know? Apart from the course for which she came all the way here, she has married a girl cheating on their feelings. Will they send her back?" Nancy said, finishing her coffee. Madhu got scared hearing that and looked at Bree. Tears filled in her eyes. Bree nodded and gestured to her to stay calm. "So you have come here to blackmail my wife?" Bree asked her mother to cover for Madhu. "I don't need to. When you do arbitrary things of yours without even caring for the elders who believed in you, breaking their trust and heart, that guilt and pain will not leave you happy for long," Nancy said. "Mom," Bree uttered softly, and Madhu gripped her hand on Bree, gesturing not to say anything. Looking at their gestures, Nancy kept her mug on the table and walked to the door. "You have a house," Nancy taunted to Bree while going out of the house, reminding her to come back. Bree locked the door when she went. Madhu stood trembling and recalling everything that Nancy said. She sat on the floor crying. Bree came and hugged her instantly. "Shh, don't worry, baby. She just wanted to hurt us. Your family will never come to know about us unless you wish to come out," Bree comforted her. "I am not worried about that. I was already guilty, Bree, for hiding this big thing of ours from our families. And looking at your mother's pain for breaking her heart, I could imagine the pain of breaking the trust of my family as well. Have we done wrong by doing all this, Bree?" she asked, holding her hand. "First, you get up and sit on the couch." Bree walked her to the couch and took a glass of water and gave it to her. Madhu took a sip of water. Bree sat close to her, embracing her arms around her shoulder and rubbing her hand. "Honey, don't feel guilty and don't fall into the trap of my mother. Whatever she said is only to hurt you. She knows you are sensitive, and we haven't done anything wrong. We didn't steal, kill, or hurt anybody to feel guilty. We fell in love, followed our hearts, and loving someone is not a sin. So stop being nervous about all these things. I am with you, and whatever comes in our life, we will face it together," Bree softly said to calm her down. Madhu heard everything she said and thought how much she loves and cares for her. She was a perfect partner and lover. Madhu thought ever since she fell in love with her, she is spoiling the love by being nervous and scared about everything. Tears filled in her eyes. She pushed her hair back to her ears and caressed Bree's cheeks. Looking into her shining eyes, she whispered, "You are the best person, Bree. I am so lucky to have you as my life partner. I love you." Her words shined in the love of Bree. Bree smiled and kissed her hand, which was caressing her cheeks, hearing her. "And I am lucky to have you in my life, my darling wife." Bree winked and kissed her. "By the way, I'm gonna miss you badly," Bree whispered, kissing her. "Me too. I won't be myself away from you," Madhu whispered, kissing her back, and opened Bree's top, and Bree opened her top while intimate kissing. They enjoyed the loving moments together. When Nancy was walking towards her car in the parking lot from Madhu's home, a man came from behind and stabbed her from the back near her car. Her blood started flowing instantly on the floor from her back. She saw the face of the man by turning back. He was wearing a mask, but his shirt had a logo which was seen by Nancy as well as by the driver of Nancy, who stood a few feet away from her. The driver ran to save Nancy instantly, and the hitman ran to his car and drove it out of the parking lot hurriedly. The driver called 911 and took Nancy instantly to the hospital.